Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. So glad you decided to join me this evening or this morning or lunch, whatever you're doing, whenever you listen. That's the beauty of this being recorded, right? So before we dive into the interview, I want to do a quick update. We've had, we're a week behind. I wanted to release a podcast last week, but last week was farrowing week. And last week was the week from hell, if I can be so blunt. Now, we had a good farrowing and we had a bad farrowing. We've had reintegration of boars, which turned into a big fight, and not with me, with the boars. But I'm going to get into that in a later episode. We'll discuss the details because we're still getting everything sorted out as to what happened there. I bet it really comes back. The theme to all of this is infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure. And if you try to farrow pigs on non-flat land, just be prepared to pull your hair out. So that's the situation here in West Virginia where I live. There's very little flat land, so when a pig decides she's not going to stay in the farrowing barn and she's going to do a Kool-Aid man on the side of the building and go out and farrow in the woodlot, then just expect everyone to roll downhill. And that's what happened. But like I said, we'll get into those details later. Not really ready to get into that just yet, because I'm still doing some assessments there. Along the same lines of announcements, we have just another quick drop. I know you guys probably get sick of hearing me say it, but, it's a podcast, so it is what it is. We're going to talk about Patreon real quick. I really appreciate the patrons, the patrons that have come on Patreon to support. We're actually halfway to our first benchmark goal of 20 supporters. We hit the 10 mark already, so excited about that. And just want to go down the list real quick and give a shout out to everyone that's supporting, and really appreciate them parting with some hard-earned money there to see that the Pastured Pig Podcast can keep rolling. And of course, they get to enjoy the additional episodes on Patreon as well. But I want to give a shout out to Keenan May, to Chet Peters, to JB Brown, Obar Farms, Adam Garner, Dan Pro, Bill Speed, Noah West, Dana Probert, and Jed Bicker. Appreciate all of you all supporting the podcast, and really it's allowed me to go ahead and start making some additional investments and things, so I really appreciate that support already. Again, we're trying to shoot for that 20 support benchmark first, and then we'll be able to turn some things on there, be able to make those additional investments. But we're already producing additional content. Last month's bonus episode was detailing a price setting and cost analysis for your farm products, specifically pastured pork products. This month, hopefully in the next week, we will have live what I call episode 2 of our marketing series. And that will be a focus on how to identify your ideal customer. And that's not necessarily one person, of course. That's the avatar, if we want to use the most relevant marketing speech. But just identify the demographics, geographic elements, those type of things of your most ideal customer. And then, of course, the goal is to go out and find more just like that. So that's what we'll be talking about this month. And usually last month we had some downloadable content to go with it, some spreadsheets and things. So we'll see. I'm not quite sure what we're going to have to go along with this one. It's a little more nebulous, but some good discussion that hopefully we should initiate there. Well, I'm going to go ahead and dive into our interview today, and I will catch you guys on the backside with some follow-up stuff. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pastured Pig Podcast. It's a pleasure to be back and enjoy doing these interviews as much as possible. It's great to have new people on each time. Today is no different. We've got a great interview set up with Gus Franchi from New Hampshire, and Gus runs Gus's Farm, which is his namesake, of course, if you didn't make that connection. So welcome, Gus. How are things this evening?
Hey, they're doing great. We're happy to have some warmer weather and some little signs of spring.
All right. So, New Hampshire, obviously a little cool, a little brisk right now. The thing that always jumps out of me about New Hampshire that I absolutely loved was Mount Washington. Are you anywhere near Mount Washington?
We're quite a bit. We're like 2.5 hours south. Mount Monadnock, fairly popular, and we're only like 20 minutes from that, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I hope to spend more time in New Hampshire and Vermont area. I really enjoyed seeing that a couple years ago and love to rum-dum around, as we say down here, and explore some more in that direction. Well, all right. So tell me a little bit about Gus's farm. What's the overall layout of your setup?
Well, I guess we'll start with the name. At the risk of being vain, I thought it best to utilize my unique and easy-to-spell name for the farm, especially since most guys around here, you can come up with the most clever name, and it's just Matt's or John's or Pat's, So
right.
I got out of the Marine Corps in 2018 and got a few laying hens while my wife and I were looking for some land. We ended up down the road. That turned into 5 pigs in 2019, and in 2020 we got access to 55 acres of woods, and actually about a year ago now. So yeah, February or March was like when I, started trudging through the snow to get some stuff done, and we did 21 pigs last year, and we're hoping to finish about 30 to 40 this year. So I guess just to continue on what the farm layout is, the 50 acres is right behind my house, which sits on 3 acres, and it is not a farm. It is it's all old woods that a couple owners ago harvested all the money he could out of it, and that was logged probably 3 years ago. And then the person we're leasing from, we're leasing it from now, and it's just there's a lot of slashed and leftover junk from the loggers, and we're just trying to do what we can with it because it's there and it's available to us.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like it was a pretty extensive timber project, and man, right after that happens, there's not much you can do with that unless let some pigs in there and some other things. And that's about it. Rabbits and quail, maybe that's about all you got, right?
Yeah, it's a lot, and I'm realizing quickly. I think I know you have a bandsaw mill, and Joel Stalton talks about having one, and Jordan Green talks about having one, and I think my situation more than others even suggests that it might be a good investment. So that's something we're looking at.
Yeah.
And I've sold a little bit of firewood to my neighbors here and there, which it's a problem not many New Englanders have, but it's just starting to pile up on me as I'm trying to clear fence lanes and stuff. But
right.
Pigs are animals meant for the woods, so it's great in that aspect, and it is somewhat of a blank canvas, so that's kind of exciting. I can kind of do with it what I want, but trees are heavy and diesel's expensive, so those are the less exciting parts about it.
Right. So it's interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up, and that wasn't necessarily a topic that I figured we'd talk about tonight, but it is a topic that I've had on my list, and that is a pig operation, a woodlot operation after a timbering. So let's back up here a little bit. So you live on 3 acres, but this 50 acres that you're leasing is adjacent to your 3 acres, so you can literally walk out the house and hit that 50 acres, correct?
Absolutely. Yep, it's right there.
Okay. So looking at that, how long ago did you say it was timbered?
2 to 3 years ago. Okay. 3 years now, I believe.
Yeah. So there, like you said, there should be a lot of treetop. There's still a lot of the residuals from that project left over there laying around, I assume.
Oh yeah. It's a mess, and and it's also at the point where we've discussed with the landowner, and kind of my wife and I, we've talked and thought, we're at a point where there's not really a lot of value to have someone come in and pay for someone's like equipment costs if we were to have a logger or someone come in. But we're still going to feel out some options. But yeah, it's at that awkward phase where like a lot of the hardwoods that you could use for firewood aren't quite, worth a logger's time, and obviously all the big stuff is gone. So yeah, there's a lot left, but not a lot. I mean, you can make do with stuff, but there's a lot there.
Yeah. So I don't know how they do it in New Hampshire. I assume it's very similar to how they do it down here in the southern Appalachian Mountains. But usually you have a log staging area. So there's a network of roads or trails that their skidders use to be able to bring the logs to a centralized point. Sometimes timber guys will actually scale the logs there, cut them to the length they want. Sometimes they'll go ahead and haul them. In my circumstance, you usually have what we call a butt pile. So it's a large pile of the cutoffs of the log. But there's usually this open area, the staging area that could be a small clearing that's been created, and it becomes the hub of those roads or trails coming to that centralized location, which then is usually close to the main road, so the logging trucks can get out and don't have to get buried up in the mud. Do you have something like that?
We do, and that has been one of those like silver linings in the property for sure. We have, we just refer to it as the landing, and it's the minimal amount of gravel that the equipment needed. And I think down the road, assuming we stick with this lease, which we really feel like we will, that's on, like as you guessed, more of a main road. I think that might become like the farm store, farm hub, like that'd be an easier place for trailers to turn around, that type of thing. Unfortunately, it's on the other side of my farm, so I'm kind of working my way there. But that landing has been great because, when I get round bales or whatever, it's an easy spot to just dump the load. And the other great thing is I don't really have a good spot to turn around a trailer, so assuming the mud is minimal, I can just drive right through the farm on what you mentioned, like the skidder path, which I've slowly been improving, but that kind of gave me a starting point. So having just at least the bare bones of a farm road has made it all possible, even though we've had to do quite a bit of improvements, but it's gotten somewhere where it's useful, very, very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing that you said, silver lining, and I agree 100%. So in my situation, our staging area was actually on a bench. So it's a higher elevation terrace, kind of natural terrace on our south ridge. And that was the best place for them to do it. So they actually would roll the logs over the edge of this rock face. It was kind of funny. So we didn't have a clean a staging area as you would in a flatter area. But even in that situation, those roads and that access point created a centralized hub where we could utilize it. Now, the lay of the land there in New Hampshire, is it pretty mountainous on this 50 acres? Does it have a decent roll to it? Is there any flat?
It's typical for around here. I know people from all over are listening. It's, there's some swamps here and there. It's definitely not a mountain. It's just, kind of rolling and woodsy.
Yeah.
There's like two steep faces. I'd say it's just very average. It's nothing significant. But going off what you said, so I guess an easy way to explain kind of how our layout is for road infrastructure is we have the skidder road, which essentially goes from literally like the end of my driveway, like my backyard, all the way to the landing on that main road, and then not exactly through the middle of it, but it ends up making 4 quasi quadrants. There's they call it a Class 6 road here, which is it's a dirt road, it's a town road, but they don't do anything to it, and people four-wheel and snowmobile on it. And that goes right through the middle of my farm. So, I'll be out. It's funny because I'll be working on fence, and you'll see someone whipping by in their dirt bike, and then they'll be like, huh? And then they just see a pig at the last second as they whiz by, because, I just popped up within a year.
Right.
And it's cool because, I've actually gotten a few customers from, like, a neighbor who walks his dog there, and it also is, like, a pretty dang good trail that I've used quite a few times. It has some obstacles, but it's fairly well established. So that road, it's kind of like, oh, free road. And then the skidder road, like, all right, we need some work, but pretty much free road. And it also, I tend to kind of take on a lot more than maybe I should. So having those, as I said, like quadrants, it's kind of allowed me to be like, all right, let's focus here, and then we'll do here. And then it's, it's a little more fence because I end up having to make like at least 2 perimeter fences, but the roads are worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the only thing that's allowed my 100 acres to be accessible. It's like you said, people are listening from all over, so it's tough to explain the lay of the land in an audio format. But without those roads, or it's tough to call them roads too, but without those paths or those trails that I could get my tractor and my side-by-side back on, then it really would limit the access to the majority of the property. And I like what you're saying here. So you're looking at this as a blank canvas, knowing that you've already got this infrastructure in, so you can access pretty much all points of the property. And it sounds like there's even a county easement through there that can help you access. It really gives you the ability to say, okay, I can try this here, I can go over here and try that, and really be able to have some different testing areas. So it sounds like that's a pretty good setup for you.
Yeah, as I said, I'm grateful. I think, everyone would want like that, big, wide open, grassy expanse. But there's a lot of fun with the woods. Like right now, a fellow farmer and I are starting to harvest some. So we have a lot of younger oaks. So I'm, that blank canvas, right? I'm like, I need some more sunlight here to get some forages going. That one's not doing so great. Let's get that down. And we're starting to stockpile some wood we'll use for shiitake and oyster bolts. And then, walking through the woods over and over again, and oh, wow, look at that oak tree. We got to save that one. We got to get the pigs to there. Yeah. It's a blank canvas, but the woods has a lot of benefit. And then shade, right? We all know pigs. They need their shade, and they like the stuff they can find at the forest floor. So it's a pretty good spot for pigs.
Yeah. I consider myself a fan or a student of silvopasture, and everything I've studied, I see these people that are trying to institute silvopasture from a grassland setting or a large wide open pasture, and they're coming back and having to plant. And those of us that are on the opposite side of that, where we have hardwood forest and we have to come in and thin, to me, I think, obviously I'm biased, but I think we're at a much better advantage because what we don't touch is already mature and producing that mass, producing that shade, all of the things that come along with that. And then, of course, what we do take out, there may be more labor for what we do, but my goodness, the products that we're getting, the firewood, the shiitake components, like you said, for me, it's lumber that goes to the sawmill and becomes part of my infrastructure on the property. So it really allows you to kind of set that up and kind of be ahead of the game. So you're right now, your woods are producing mast. So this fall, you'll be able to reap those benefits even again.
Oh, absolutely. And then the other thing too is it right? Diversity is good, and I mean just almost pretty much anything, and especially with forages and timbers, right? So that's where like it's really fun. So I have a friend who's an arborist, or just by myself, I'll walk out there and I'll be like, all right, I want a little bit of oak, a little bit of beech. Like we want to have a little bit of everything, but we also want to have some young ones and some old ones. And I doubt there's many, if any, people who are, as you said, establishing silvopasture in fields that are transplanting 200-year oak trees, right? And I get to just be like, yeah, look, there's one right there.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, great advantage. Now up in that area of the country, do you have, on that 50 acres, are there a lot of apple trees around?
So yeah, Johnny Appleseed's from I think one town away, 2 towns away.
Okay.
At least, one of the places, Leominster, Massachusetts, not far from us. So there's that's like what kids do in school around here. They sing, they do their Johnny Appleseed songs. But so there's a lot of orchards around here. Unfortunately, there's some. Troy, you're like me. You'd probably just cry driving by them because they're just decades and decades of labor that went into establishing them, and the wrong person inherited it, and they just have gone to waste. And now they're good hunting ground, I'm sure, but boy, oh boy, is it a shame. Native apple trees, I don't really, at least on my property, I haven't seen any, and I guess there's an orchard probably like 5 miles away. But yeah, apple trees do very well. One thing I happen to be really lucky to have is, I call it now, the locust paddock, but I actually have some locust trees, which I don't ever remember having seen them. I grew up in New England, but coming on this property, now I pay attention more as I drive around, I'll see some, but I got a good stand of locusts that, you guessed it, I've been I got some crooked fence posts out there, but they're going to last a while, and they're free, so that's been really cool.
Yeah, they're definitely not going to get any sexy points, but man, they do last, and it's great to be able to harvest that off your own property for sure.
They'll dull your saw quick, though, I learned that, and the other thing is, I don't know if all locusts are, but I'm pretty sure all locusts are legumes, right? They're nitrogen fixers, so that's really cool, and but boy, oh boy, watch out for those thorns. Yeah.
No, I think you're correct. I believe all locusts are. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's, again, I'm always amazed. I think that God was kind of chuckling when He made everything, because He's like, okay, locust trees, they're going to have these thorns and everything, but man, they're going to be so easy to split, because when I split our black locust, it's almost like glass. You just get a wedge in it. I guess the proper term is riving. When you rive one, it splits so well and just on such a clean line. So you got a 6 foot or 8 foot post here that I'm riving, and then when it pops, it just sounds like somebody broke glass. You can rive it into quarters and everything, and it works out well. So yeah, that's a great asset to have on the property for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, well let's man, we definitely got down a rabbit hole there. So let's come back around a little bit and let's talk about your pigs in general. So what variety of pigs have you gone with, and what are some of the details of that setup so far?
Yeah, so I try to get some heritage pigs, and this is my first year farrowing, which we'll get to, but a lot of Craigslist meetups and driving around to get 3 or 4 or 5 here and there. I've ended up with pretty much everything has some Gloucester Old Spot in it. I'm way too new to have an opinion, or at least any conviction, I should say, on what breeds. And I think Berkshires are hot right now, right? They're like the Angus of pork. Almost every person on the podcast and every forum, they're all talking about that. And I do. They seem like good pigs, but I'm just having fun, getting multicolored, and I think the way you raise them, I don't know, I'm sure it's an old saying, but there's more difference between each pig than each breed. And I think, until you get to either the coon or the Mangalista, things on the far left or right, I feel like that's fairly true. But right, part of this whole pastured pork thing, this regenerative agriculture deal, is you really got to, I think, I have found that you have to separate yourself from the grocery store and be like, we are different. And not so much the grocery store, but the conventional confinement production, right? All these things we know. So I do think it's easier to show pictures and show videos and make posts and tell people about pigs that, not only are they raised outside when some are raised inside, and not only are they given local grain and processed locally, but they look different, right? They're different colors, and so they're just more enjoyable to be around, So I'm not one of those old timers that's I don't believe in a white pig, but I do think there's a marketing value to having, dare I say, cute animals. And, like I said, I'm too new to really have those convictions, they're tougher or whatever. But yeah, right now, I actually have some red wattle. The guy didn't know how he ended up with them, and then I'll have some red wattle and then some Gloucester Old Spots, and they're just heritage mutts, really.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. Just starting out, play around with it. I think people can really get wrapped around the axle quickly on saying this is exactly how I do it, and I'm going to do it this way because I've seen somebody else do it and so successful with it. And like you said, there's so many variation, not only in the genetic line of a specific breed, but also in the environment. And as you said, there's so many things that go into producing a great pig that aren't just genetics. Genetics is huge, but it's not. That's not the only thing. So seeing what can handle your property, what bodes well there, what forages well, that's all going to be part of the mix.
Well, that, and I don't think it'd be a livestock conversation in 2020 or 2021 now, I suppose, without it. We was talking at least a little bit about the scarcity of slaughter dates and processing.
Right.
And I've brought how many processing sessions, maybe 4 or 5, whatever. But point is, I really haven't even had a chance to, I haven't fed them this amount of grain for this amount of weeks, and weigh the animal each time to bring it in. And basically, I haven't had enough controls or experience to have controls to really know, like, oh yeah, this is what got that carcass great. And I'll be honest when I say, like, I can tell, like, wow, this pork is better than grocery store pork, but I'm not at that level where the fat content here, there, and I know there's truth to that and validity to that, but I'm just not at the point where I've been really it's mattered, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Well, like I say, you're just starting out, getting that figured out, getting your customer base established, and all of that's going to be good feedback as you move forward. So let's talk about a little bit about infrastructure. So you had in the notes that you sent me that you're working on some backbone fence, perimeter fence with high tensile, using some temporary placed double strand. What else? What other infrastructure do you have when it comes to fencing, when it comes to shelter, when it comes to water source?
Yeah. So again, like, this definitely wasn't a farm a year ago, and now it's starting to shape up like one. I have, I'm not going to put a number to it, but I have a good bit of that 50 acres, maybe a third of it, maybe a little less, with at least the beginnings of some 5-strand high tensile electric. That portions I even added on a couple more, so we're looking at 7 strands. And I'll use a lot of timeless fence posts, and then locust. Really, I made sure the corners were strong, and then after that, it was what made sense. Pressure treated as bat ends bolted to trees, whatever made sense. And then I have, as you said, 2-strand. I've used poly wire, but I use a lot of just soft wire, the regular aluminum wire with welding spool reels, and I have a mix of fiberglass or O'Brien step-ins with rebar and rod insulators. Mm-hmm. And I try in the summer. I move the pigs once a week, every two weeks at the longest. But other infrastructure, so water is definitely a pain. And I was able to borrow a mini excavator a couple times, but never a mini excavator and some gravel and some culvert. So I have a couple beginnings of some dug wells, and I'm fortunate where I have some good water on the property. It's like it's wet, it doesn't get dry, and there's some spots that will make some good dug wells. So my plan is to I have a 12-volt pump system that, the whole setup's like $150. So my plan is to have a few dug wells, just culvert pipe, dig a hole, culvert pipe, backfill it with stone, and be able to feed each of the paddocks out of 1 or 2 of those. Just because it's there, seems to me like I'd rather have multiple points of failure than like a hose, like a water line. Maybe eventually I'll do the water line thing, but the dug wells make sense. So for right now, because I've, bucketing out of those little wells that aren't quite done yet, or I have IBC totes and I can put that on my tractor, or a little trailer for my tractor, and I'll kind of set the IBC tote down or put it on a stack of pallets, and I'll just take a 5-gallon bucket and keep I have those 80-gallon drinkers, so I'll keep those topped off. What else infrastructure? I was able to score from a scrapyard some big, I don't even know how many gallon, I think they're like 1,000-gallon oil tanks that I was able to hack in half, and those have been pretty good rugged shelters because I can just take my tractor forks to them and move them around and drop them and bang them and not care about them because they're just metal. Definitely some, they stay moist inside. They condensate, but they're rugged, and you give them enough bedding. I think they work pretty well for shelters. I was able to. I know I'm kind of stop me anytime. I'm just kind of rattling off.
Oh no, you're good. Keep going.
I finished 2 8x14 shelter, like huts, pig huts for farrowing that I plan to use for a brooder as well. And those are on skids, and they're very simple. Wish I built them a little taller, and that's where I have my sows right now. And yeah, they look like an Adirondack-like camping shelter on the AT, but a little bit closed in. And they're on skids, so I plan to pull them around with the tractor. And and then I have some of those Osborne 1-ton feeders. That a couple of them are used. One was new. And yeah, just everything's portable, and that balance between what's cheap and free and what will last and is worth your time. That's what I have for infrastructure. The most effort goes into those corner posts for high tensile, and then beyond that, I try to keep myself nimble.
Yeah. I mean, my goodness, can't stress that enough. Especially starting out, figuring out what you've got to do. Of course, on leased land, you don't want to put a ton of permanent infrastructure in for the property owner, and just because of things can change. But the nimbleness of being able to move and change and say, well, let's try it this way or let's try it that way, and different layouts, different paddock sizes, that's definitely handy to have. And it sounds like you've got great key assets on the property with the water, with the road, with the lay of the land, again, the timber that's still there. So it really is a good starting point. Yeah, I mean, I think you worked, you lucked out or worked out well. You eyeballed it. Whatever you did to acquire that, you did well in doing your homework. It's going to take another year or two for it to really tie together. I think once we get the perimeter fence done and a couple of those wells done, and then some more rotations with the pigs, it's going to be like, whoa, there's a farm there. That's the plan at least. All right. Well, this is something I would normally ask at the beginning of the conversation, but we really took off well in our conversation, and I do want to ask this. So, why does a Marine get out of the Corps and decide to raise pigs? Was that like the plan coming out of the Corps?
Yeah, when I was toward the end of my enlistment in the Marine Corps, and I was fixing to get married, and my wife was real, she was like, you do what you want to do, but just make sure it's the right decision. And, I wanted to stay. I really like the Marine Corps, and, they call it the Stuck for a reason, so it's not all fun and games. But, I always wanted to farm. I got some hippie parents, I think, and I had some farmer friends growing up, and, it was really the only other thing I wanted to do aside from being a Marine. And, I think, I had a friend, he got hurt in training, and, having conversations with him, and he said, man, all I know is if I could, I would do what I wanted. I was like, you know what? I think I should go for it. So I was like, I did the Marine Corps thing. Let's get out and farm. And to my wife's dismay, I'm out there late at night trying to farm every night. So either way, I'm gone a lot. But yeah, there's a lot of, but I think, in the podcast you had with Jordan, he said a lot of the things I would say about, there's purpose. There's that level of challenge, like responsibility. I could go on and on, but it's just, there's the only other thing I wanted to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. Awesome. And that's good too. I mean, have a plan, execute it, and always have a backup plan. It's always good to see something through that way.
Yep.
Well, okay. Well, let's talk about. You'd mentioned something earlier about farrowing. So it sounds like have you acquired a boar? Are you doing AI, or where are you now with that process?
My neighbor has a few pigs, and he let me borrow his boar. He's a Gloucester old spot. Definitely not pure. did it all, at least first or second heat cycle for him. So, today was our last pig gave, and so we're looking at, I'm trying to do my math here. I am a Marine after all, so 20, 30, so 39 piglets.
Goodness. All right.
5 as of a couple hours ago. So, yep, that crazy kid who, second year farming and first year farrowing decided to do it in one of the colder Februaries. So.
Well, that proves that's the immediate proof of the resiliency of your animals. So, was that from 5 sows? You said 39.
Yep, that was from 5 sows.
That's pretty good. And they were all sows. None of them were gilts.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, they're all sows now. They were all gilt.
Oh, no kidding. All right. Wow.
Another leap of faith. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a couple troubles. If you want me to run through real quick, we had 3 out of 9, 6 out of 8, 10 out of 10, 12 out of 13, and then 8 out of 10. A couple of those 8 out of 10s are looking a little skinny, but we'll see.
Okay, do that again, a little slower, because I'm not a Marine, but I'm in West Virginia, so you're gonna have to talk slower for me.
So, in order of how they ended up farrowing, we had 3 out of the 9 piglets are alive.
Okay.
And then 1 is 6 out of 8 of the pigs are alive. And then 10 out of 10.
Okay.
And then 12 out of 13. And then 8 out of 10.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, that's across the board there. I mean, that's definitely documentable, right? So you write that down and say, okay, here's the 10 out of 10, here's the 12 out of 13. That's definitely green light. The yellow lights, maybe the 8 out of 10s. That 3 out of 9 is a big question mark. Do you know what happened there, or what the situation was?
Yeah, I think I was as excited as she was, and I think I was getting in her way a little bit. I don't know. I mean, it's their first time. It's my first time, and I'm trying to, I know I'm new. Eventually, I want to get toward, real low input and kind of leave them be, but I'm also trying to grow the business, so I didn't want to lose too many piglets. So I think I probably should have had her. There's 3 stalls in each of those farrowing huts. I think I should have had her in one and kind of locked in one previous, but I was kind of letting them go outside, and getting her inside as she started farrowing, I think, kind of stressed her out. And then, she just stomped. Like one fell out of the hut, and I think died of the cold. And the other one, she just would get worked up and step on him. Again, I think I might have been in her face a little bit, but it's also her first time. So, but I think that's also why nature gave her 9 of them. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that for gilts, those are good litter sizes, and that's a thumbs up to the boar. I'd tell the neighbor he gets a blue star.
Yeah. So I'm happy so far. Like I said, some of those ones that were born earlier today looking a little skinny, but it's amazing how fast they grow. Let me tell you.
Yeah. So, do you know how big of a castration day you've got lined up yet?
No, I'm not sure yet. I think weather's really going to determine that, because I'll probably want to have it. I'm still deciding. I'm looking at what other people do, and I think weather, and if I can get them set up with a different spot, because I might try to, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, that's the neat part. There's things that come along, and it's decision time. Do I do it this way? Do I do it that way? Do I not do it, or do it later? And that's some of those things you learn. In my circumstance, it was always you learn and you go through a bad trial or something that kicks your butt. And it's like, okay, I think next time I'm going to do it this way instead of that way.
Oh, absolutely. I just have to do things horribly wrong the first time to get out of the way, and then I can learn.
Right. So let's be optimistic and say the 39 that you have continue to grow and make it through these first couple weeks. And so, are you going to finish all 39? You think? Are you going to sell off some growers to other people? What's your plan there?
Well, because I called like probably over a year ago now, I guess, or about a year ago. I have the slaughter dates where I could finish all 39. I think it will depend. I have walk-in freezer panels to the left of my garage, along with some other junk. And if I can get that walk-in freezer up and going, I think I'm going to try to finish closer to all of them.
Wow. Yeah,
but
excellent.
If, yeah, and that is a little ambitious, and I have the slaughter dates spread out, so maybe I'll back off a few, and, I'll do the slaughterhouse and the other farmers a courtesy and call as soon as I decide, but, we have a couple feeders on the farm right now that they're getting April 19th, I believe, and we already have a few of them sold. So if we can, kind of pick, now that we have some more inventory, if we can pick up in marketing, if we can sell them, then, we're going to do it. But, yeah, I know there's that window, right? Because they get hard to get rid of if they start growing. So,
well, yeah, but again, that's just part of the experience and seeing, and man, if you can pencil it out where you can finish 39 and you can either get them into, I assume you're going USDA, so you've got the ability to put them into cuts and or holes and halves, and you've got that customer base, then yeah, that could turn a nice profit for your first full season.
Yeah, I'll be honest, we don't have the customer base now. We have, I think we could easily do 20. Not easily, it's work, but my wife's pretty on point with marketing. We just kind of are starting to tip our toes into shipping. But if I start putting some of that effort that goes in the fence into marketing, it seems like, there's a demand, right? So if we can just kind of figure out where that demand's coming from, I think we're going to try to do 40 or 39 or so. We'll see.
Yep, that's good. Yeah, that's just like a Marine. Be ambitious, man. Kick a door in and keep running.
Yeah.
No, I like it. Yeah, and again, you don't know until you try, and you get in a certain situation, you can still be able to sell those things off. Again, you may lose a little bit of your margin with the feed input and what you'd actually sell. A grower kind of halfway through its cycle, but yeah, you just don't know, especially if right now you see people looking for breeding stock. So if you had some gilts, I don't know if you're going to keep any boars intact, but if you had that situation, then there could be some movement there as well. So, you know enough of it to know that you've definitely got some options, it sounds like. So
definitely. Yeah. I'm keeping the eye on, the forums and Craigslist and stuff, but yeah.
All right. So, Gus, what do you think? What's the 5-year plan on Gus's farm? It sounds like this fence we've talked about. You're going to include fence, and you're going to do some marketing. You said something about maybe a farm store and some other things. What are your thoughts there in 5 years?
Yeah, I really think there's a lot. I think staying nimble, smart. So I think that farm store I mentioned is maybe long term. My dad is recently retired, and I think I've been able to convince him to build me something not too unlike the farrowing huts, right? I think we're looking at 8x8 on skids, basically a garden shed with an outlet that we're going to put at the end of our driveway because, as any man or anyone would really tell you, a garage can't be everything. So I found out pretty quick this winter with the snow we got, it can't be a place to fix my tractor, park my tractor, store my grain, and be the home of 4 freezers and a place I can expect customers to come in and pick up meat, which they do because they love the product and they're good people. But I think the plan, especially with the walk-in, right, that will be obviously out of the garage. And if we can have just a tiny little, portable for tax reasons and practical reasons, shed-type store at the bottom of our driveway, and I can run power fairly easily there. Then, one little fridge or freezer, and it can be a drop-off point. Or, people want to do curbside pickup type thing, or, hey, call us if you want us to come restock it if we don't catch it. I think that's the perimeter fence and and applying some of the lessons learned in this winter. Is the 1 year, if we're talking like, the other thing is I'm looking at some leasing some pasture. It's New England. There's not really big farms or big wide open spaces. A lot of it's been developed. So there's a couple smaller farms I'm looking at leasing to expand into beef, grass-fed, rotationally grazed beef. I think we might try some turkeys this year. But yeah, in 5 years, I'd like to have, I'd like to have the 55 acres on lock and have the pork at a point where it's, it's about as maximized as it can be. In, the 55 real thinned out and all fenced in. And then I'd like to have a grass-fed beef enterprise going strong and some poultry. And I think whether it's a wood processor or a bandsaw mill, I think that would be a purchase within the next 5 years. I mean, honestly, I'd love to be full-time farming in 5 years, but my goal is by 30, so I'm 27. We'll see if we get there. But, so immediate goals, perimeter fence, small store and walk-in, and then long-term is just grow the business sustainably on both the wallet and the environment.
Yeah, man, that sounds great. I love the thought that you've put into it, and definitely setting goals are key, and just looking to make the expansions in the right areas and make the moves when it makes sense. It's good stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's why I don't love to put it's easy to catch yourself be like, I want to be breeding 100 sows, or finishing this many, and it's like, well, I want to do what makes sense. I catch myself coming up with these grandiose ideas. I'm like, no, I want to do what makes sense, right? What allows me to do it full time, hopefully, but also what's enjoyable and what is, like I said, sustainable. So. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, before I let you go, I want to wrap up with a question I ask everybody, and of course, you're no different. So, what is the best experience or favorite part about raising pigs on pasture for you?
Oh, it's easy. That's when. I guess it's like 2 in 1. It's when I move, when the pigs are a couple months old, they figure out the routine, and when I open that gate and move them into like a fresh paddock. Because like I said, I move them once a week, every 2 weeks at the most. Especially if it's one that they had been at before, and I seeded some Sudan grass or clover or something, and just when they run in there, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And the best part, Troy, is though when I have a customer or a friend or someone, and they're there when that happens, they're like, whoa, I've never seen pigs so happy. That's better than, wow, this is the best pork chop I ever tasted. Like, when they're like, whoa, those animals are playing. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's what animals do. That's the most fun, I think.
That's very cool. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. That is neat to watch them explore a new area or an area they haven't been in a long time and just enjoy all those new, it's like sensory overload for them when they run through there.
Oh, yeah, it's the best.
Great. Well, Gus, if people want to find out any more about you, do you have an online presence yet? Have you guys made it to that point?
Yes, we are on Instagram at Gus Farm and at Gus_Farm, and we have a website, GusFarm.com, and we're on Facebook, which you could just look up my name.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll post that information in our show notes, of course, so people can find that out. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I didn't get to say this at the beginning, so I'm going to say it now. Thank you for your service to our country and the Marine Corps, and glad you were able to come out unscathed. The Corps is a tough experience, I understand, so I'm glad you served us well there. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Troy, and thanks for all you do with the podcast, and yeah, I'm glad I could contribute in a small way.
All right, man. Well, I pray you have a great week, and it was a pleasure talking to you. Well, all right. Well, I appreciate Gus coming on the podcast and sharing his story with us. If you guys want to find out more about him, of course, you can visit his social media links. I will have those posted down in the show notes as well. Well, we've got a pretty good lineup coming. I've been impressed the amount of people that have reached out here just recently at the time of recording these bumpers to come on the podcast. So we should have a pretty good lineup that will take us well into summer, probably even to fall, with the number of interviews we have scheduled. But don't let that deter you. If you would like to come on the podcast or you would like to make some suggestions for future topics, I've had several of you send me some really good emails with a very long list of suggested topics, and some of which that definitely go deeper into my knowledge or my information. I obviously wouldn't expect to be the sole expert on everything. I don't consider myself an expert on anything, actually, but anxious to explore some of these topics, and I'm still trying to figure out the format of that. Again, if I could get into some of these deeper topics with somebody that's a specific expert in that source area, then that's what we'll do. But I'm rambling. But we'll figure something out there and get into some of those specific topics as well as continue to do these interviews. Well, again, don't forget the Patreon if you're interested in getting the bonus episodes and, of course, supporting our efforts here so we can grow and expand this community even more. Again, I can't thank you all enough, those of you that have supported. And I pray everyone have a great week. And, man, at this time, it's as I'm recording this, it's mid-May, and it is just absolutely gorgeous outside here in West Virginia. We've had a really great spring. So I've been able to enjoy that quite a bit. I pray everyone has as well. All right, take care, everybody.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.